The Central Club.
What's going on, people? Welcome to the Central Club. This episode is brought to you by Re-Inspire Printing and the City Arms. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the club, and hit the bell button to be notified of future content. Today, we're on a remote interview, and I am really excited to get this guest going. He's a former actor and a TV commentator, but more recently, he's been in the limelight for some very controversial topics. I warmly welcome you, Mr. Laurence Fox.
Hello, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Actually, not too bad. Sitting around in the new year, freezing my ass off. You know how it is.
Yeah, it's freezing where we are as well, to be fair. But hopefully, you know, things will get better this year. Now, hopefully we'll have a nice summer. I think last year was terrible.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens this year. I think the event's meant to happen this year, isn't it? I keep reading about.
What event?
I don't know. There's a good little bit of gossip going around that all of the billionaires are building bunkers for themselves to protect themselves from the event.
Yeah, this is something that isn't like just a paranoid hearsay, is it either? This is like out, like it's being reported in the media and stuff as well. Mark Zuckerberg's buying up Hawaii and putting in bunkers and stuff. This isn't really something that people are paranoid about. This is like in our faces.
Yeah, it certainly is. It'll be interesting. I mean, you every year you think it can't get any worse than last year. So maybe we've reached peak weirdness, but you never know.
Did you did you watch the film on Netflix, Leave the World Behind?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And what is your take from that film?
Well, you know, nowadays with the media, everyone's faith in the media is really diminished, hasn't it? Quite a lot. So, you know, quite a lot of people were like, they're just telling you what's going to happen next. So my take on the film was it was an all right film. I got a bit bored of the sort of racial element to it, which now seems to be in every film. So, yeah.
Yeah, I did notice that as well, to be fair. You know, the fact that like they were living in the summer house and the family came home and they were like, we're living in the basement in our own home. And, you know, they were trying to drive that racial element, definitely. And I think like there was like, it felt like Julia Roberts, it was kind of like that affair going on as well with the two of them midway through when Ethan was nowhere to be seen in the film. And it was just kind of on them two.
Yeah, Ethan was a bit of a sort of hapless beta male, wasn't he? So it was kind of, you know, the standard, the new Hollywood, which is a kind of, hapless beta male. That's what they want us to believe in masculinity from Hollywood.
And I think the most shocking part of all of it was the fact that the people who produced the film was Michelle and Barack Obama. And I think if, you know, being the president of the United States, if you're going to make a film, you think you'd be a bit more heroic, maybe a bit more positive, not so negative against your own country.
The Obamas famously hate America, don't they? You know, Michelle Obama said she hated America until Barack got voted for. And then we voted for the Obama. Well, not we. They voted for Obama twice, and he did more damage to the country than Biden. I imagine. Well, he's running Biden at the moment, so he's still doing damage to the country, but not for long. We hope. No,
hopefully not. Well, let's take it back a little bit because we just dived straight in there with some heavy duty stuff. But I want to take it back because, like I said, you're known as, you know, your father was an actor, you know, you, your family, your siblings are all pretty well known, you know, in the mainstream media, let's say, well-to-do upbringing, you know, household name, so to speak, in British tradition. You know, I'd see you on Gogglebox, Loose Women and other talk shows, let's say. And then I remember during lockdown, there was a lot of, you know, talk about, you was under the microscope a lot. Can you take us back to really what kind of the trigger point was for that? And we'll go from there.
I think when I was acting, I acted for a long time on this TV show called Lewis, which went on for 10 years. And it was kind of the same crew and kind of the same people. So you became mates with them and they're almost like family, but it, you know, like a family, it's quite insulated. And then I finished Lewis. and I went on to do a Netflix show. I did a few other shows, and I went on, and there was just like, it was a complete change of direction. You know, people were going on about, it was the Brett Kavanaugh hearings in America. Do you remember when Christian Blasey Ford said that he'd raped her, but she couldn't remember when or where? And people were going on about believing all women. And I was like, no, you can't do that. I mean, if you believed all women, there'd be a lot of innocent men in prison. You've got to examine the evidence and, you know, find out whether someone's guilty or innocent of something. I understand there's an under-reporting and under-convicting of rape, but at the same time, there are lots of crimes that are under-reported and under-convicted. So I started to sense that there was a narrative developing, certainly in show business, which I couldn't get on board with, which was not based in reason or common sense or you know, thorough inquiry. It was based in feelings. And feelings are really not always the best. I mean, they're helpful, but they're not what should drive decision making. And this was at the same time as my love of the mainstream media was dying, because, well, I never loved it, but I just started to see through all the lies on every piece of mainstream media. So I kind of stopped watching TV for a couple of years, and I haven't turned it back on, which is interesting. And I started just getting my information from places where I trusted the information more. So then I started thinking, oh, I'm not, what's this? This is woke. This is what woke is. And it's the first time I'd really come across it in showbiz. You know, then people talking about skin color privilege and all that sort of stuff. And I wrote an album which I released, and it had a political song on it called The Distance. And I was promoting it, and I was invited on Nihal Arthanaka, if that's how you pronounce his name, on Radio 2 to sing and then interview. And I did that. And then I was going to go across to do Question Time in Liverpool the next night. And I decided that if I was going to say what I was going to say, that I was going to say it and I was not going to apologise, because what's the point? So sure enough, a BBC plant is put in the audience to start talking about white privileged male. You're a white privileged male. And I was like, no, I'm not. You're a racist. That's what, you know, I can't change the colour of my skin. And my privilege has got nothing to do with the colour of my skin, because, you know, look at Lewis Hamilton or, you know, LeBron James. There's quite a lot of people who are not white who are really privileged. So I thought, no, that's just racist. So that kicked off. And then pretty soon afterwards, they were talking about forcing people to take a brand new drug and locking you in your house. So I was like, hang on a minute, what on earth is going on? And people started falling for it. And I was just like, nah. And so I was very outspoken about the lockdowns, broke all of the lockdown rules that were available to break, and would advertise that I was having a party on as many weekends as I could. And
so now you're a white privileged male who is partying and ignoring.
Anti-vaxxer, white privileged male.
Yeah, anti-vaxxer.
Transphobic, misogynistic, everything. I'm everything. All of them. Any box that is to tick, I tick it, apparently. So, yeah, I thought that was a gross inhibition on individual liberty. I don't think that has anything to do with the government, where I can and can't go. So it just started to wind me up. So I started to point these things out to my, you know, social media following and various things that I was doing. And it really upset all of the people that I wanted to upset. So I was really happy about that. And from that moment, moving on, I became a very unpopular person for a certain demographic in this country, which is kind of permanently offended, whiny, wokey, history-hating, country-hating cucks.
And do you think that the media that you was working in at that time or before, well, all you've known is kind of embedded with that, with these type of people, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is the diversity, equity, and inclusion, as we've seen in America with Claudine, is everywhere, and they're bringing it in everywhere. So show business is a pretty narrow church when it comes to, well, you can tell a conservative-minded person in show business because they never give interviews. You know, that's how you tell, because they don't want to get busted and lose their job. But yeah, it was embedded in show business. It was embedded in everything I could see. So, and I can't bear it, because the word I hate the most is diversity of anything other than viewpoint. That's what diversity means to me. When they start talking about diversity, the first thing I hear is not for you, mate. Diversity for everyone except you, except the
diverse, except you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I and actually nowadays when I hear the word diversity, I just hear anti-white racism. That's all I hear. So I stand against it. This country is not a racist country. I don't want this country going backwards in time to, not that ours is a totally different history map to American history. And I'm not having, American tropes brought over here and, and being told what I have to worship, what altar I have to worship at. And I'm not going to worship at the diversity, equity and inclusion altar. And I'm not going to worship at the Black Lives Matter altar either. Just ideologies that they're all grifts anyway, the whole thing. But I'm not interested in it. I want our country to be fair and equitable and nice and warm and welcoming, which it is proven to be in every single survey that's ever done about this country. So I'm sick of people bashing it and saying it's a terrible country. It's that bad. Why are you hopping on a boat to come and live here? And I think we're in quite a lot of trouble as a nation now. Very divided.
Certainly divided. But the way you're talking is as if it's a ticking time bomb, like something's going to happen.
It is. Something is going to happen because hopefully it's a peaceful coup like is happening in America with the diversity, with what Bill Ackman's doing with the plagiarism and finding diversity hires and, getting them out. But, every day it gets worse and worse and worse. I was watching yesterday the chief executive of United Airlines, who's actually a white guy, surprise, surprise, talking about hiring more people of color and women. And it's like, no, can you just hire the best pilot? That would help.
Yeah, this is a problem I have. Sorry, this is a problem I have as well, like with sports and stuff as well. Like, surely you would hire the best man or the best woman for the job.
Well, it only works in one direction, the diversity thing, you see, because if they're saying we want fair representation for women and people of colour, then if you then turn around and go, okay, I agree with you, let's have fair representation of women and people of colour, then the England football team should be, eight of those players should be white. But we don't go, no, we've got to have white football players. It's absolutely ridiculous separating people out by skin colour. And it's the definition of what racism is. So it's evil, and it is a ticking time bomb, because either there's going to be people are getting fed up with it, So
I seen someone put it in a sense of calling it the silent majority. The people, the majority think this way, and from what I've noticed, it's all colours as well. Like there's a certain demographic of people, like your Calvin Robinsons and people who see it for what it is, and.
Well, also people of colour, which is such a weird expression, because if you say coloured person, it's like, oh no, you can't say that, but you just swap it round.
You can say people of colour and not coloured people.
It's absolute bollocks. They're trying to control our language. Calvin's a good example of seeing it for what it is, but he gets a lot more grief. I walk around the streets every day. A lot of people of colour deliberately stop me and say, thank you for not treating us like we need white people to get on in this world, and patronising us, because that's how I would feel if someone said, oh, you poor white person, you can't do these things, let's teach you, or you need more help. It's like, go away, I can look after my own life, thanks very much. So yeah, it's just pernicious, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly. I do see where you're coming from, Laurence. If I look at it, it seems like, in the sense with the media and cancelling yourself and others who think like you, it's similar to how obviously they're two opposite they're two opposite fronts, but draining the swamp, like Trump was going to drain the swamp in America, it's as if like this woke culture have kind of come together and said, we need to drain the swamp of these people who just have traditional values, traditional ways of life.
Yeah, but it doesn't work because, like you said, it's the silent majority. The majority of us don't want to think like that. So they're a very noisy minority who are really well organized, and they get into all our institutions and they get into our schools and they teach our kids about, you know, that they can be a girl if they're a boy and all of that crap. And they're taking an entire generation and trying to brainwash them and put us all through struggle sessions if we get the wrong thing, if we microaggress them or any of this stuff. And it all comes out of academia, and you know, it's exactly the same playbook as communist China. They used to talk about Han chauvinism in China. We need to get rid of this Han chauvinism, which is like it's a Chinese version of white privilege. And then they bring in communism as a result of that. And I don't want my kids to grow up in a communist country. I don't like communism. It kills lots of people, and it's a stupid idea. So my job is to because I've got a platform, is to use my platform to voice these views of the so-called silent majority, because you know there aren't that many people who are willing to do it. And you've got to, once you've been through the grinder like I have, you have to set an example to people.
With your talks, with what you do, like we just talk about it being the silent majority, would things only change if that majority are not silent, that they do have to speak up, would you say?
Yeah, they do, and they will. But the way the Brits tend to speak up is by not saying anything, which is annoying. So if you look at stuff like elections, it'll be interesting to see how many Conservative voters just won't vote at all, I imagine, in a lot of places, because they just go, well, I'll just wait for the Conservative Party to be Conservative again, and then I'll vote for them. But it's very difficult for the silent majority to be heard, because the Conservative Party and the Labour Party are exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And therefore, who's representing their views? I mean, you've got Reform, but Reform don't really deal with the cultural issues as in the way that I think is so much more important than, I mean, obviously, well, everything is a cultural issue, essentially. You know, immigration is a cultural issue. The economy is a cultural issue. But, you know, unless we attack the ideologues in the diversity, equity and inclusion lobby, then nothing will change, because, you know, you're going to have woke lifeboat people saving, you know, lifting people up and giving them lifts back to England. You know, it's like they should be picking them up and taking them back to France. That's where these, you know, France is a perfectly safe country. I don't know why we have in this country 1 million immigration in a year. You can't do it. How can a country with a welfare state survive that? It can't. And it's profound, again, it being the woke stuff, it's profoundly racist. You don't take people's best of their country to come in, fill up our hospitals and work in our hospitals. You make your own country better. You don't steal the brightest and the best from other countries. And then you also, you're discriminating against British people who can't afford a house. And until you can get an NHS appointment and get an operation and be seen and get some cancer treatment, then I think we need to shut the borders until people who are already here can be looked after. That's what I think.
Yeah. I done a 3-part documentary at the Stradey Park Hotel in Llanelli, where they were trying to move migrants into this hotel, which was like it was the jewel in their village, basically. It brought a lot of economy, weddings, christenings, parties, whatever else. And I think, you know, that there, what you said of, you know, bringing 1 million people in a year is that in a nutshell on a smaller scale. I think there was a population of 250 or 300. No, sorry, it was 400, the village population, and they tried to move 250 male migrants into this village. And you think, when you look at it like that, you know that is going to cause a lot of trouble. And obviously this is happening on a grander scale. When you put it into places like London, you don't really recognize it as much because it's so big. But that is what it is really all over the country.
Yeah, and if you say anything about it, and if you're at all, cautious, even wary, you're immediately called a racist.
A racist, yeah.
And I think that one of the other things that they've done is really demean that word, the meaning of what that word means.
It doesn't mean what it is anymore. Yeah.
Now it just means if you don't agree with me, you're a racist, and it's just like whatever, man. Honestly, but I think we've seen up and down the country, seeing what's happened in Ireland. That people are just saying, no, I'm not having this. I'm not having my whole community.
Yeah. And what they had up there as well was Stand Up to Racism Llanelli. But none of the people from Stand Up to Racism Llanelli were from Llanelli. They were from Bristol, and they were paid £40 to go there and pretend to be this anti-racial group. And they were calling the locals Nazis and all terrible words. And some of these older folks, like this is like a real old village, and some of these folks have fought in World War II, some of them, or they're direct childs of war, like, and they're trying to call them Nazis against the people they once fought against. I think it's ridiculous. I think some of the things they think they can get away with and calling people for standing up against things like migration.
Yeah, but no one's against migration. It's a good thing, but it needs to be proportionate and measured. It can't be open borders. And you're also seeing. I went to the Palestine Pro Hamas marches in London, and these people are not in any discernible way British, that I can see. Because they were screaming about how much they hated Jewish people. And you're like going, well, hang on. In England, you can be any religion you want. It doesn't matter. But you're British, you're British. And these people were saying the most appalling things. We've just seen that thing that went viral the other day with this guy going, we've got to normalise massacres. And it's like, he's saying this on the streets of London on the same stage as an MP has stood on that thing. And the police, those lovely little two-tiered police force, that pathetic embarrassment that we have in London, would rather send 6 people around my house than they would go and take a man down calling for the normalisation of massacres. And that is how bad the country is. So at some point, you're going to see a rise in intolerance for that sort of behaviour. And when that moment comes, then all we can say to our ruling class is you ask for it. And the Metropolitan Police, you just say, you were the ones that did this, guys. You were the ones that decided to police people's speech and not stop kids stabbing each other. You were the ones that have allowed this city crime to go up by 30%, knife crime to go up by 30%, because you're too busy looking at Twitter, coming after Laurence Fox, who's done what have I actually done, Mr. Policeman? Surely there's a kid with a knife somewhere that you should be looking for instead. But no, the police are very virtuous. That they're also, I spoke to the chief of police and I said, is this an anti-racist organisation? And he went, yeah. So that's anti-racist is just racist with the word anti in front of it. So, it's everywhere. So our whole police force, the mayor, I hate that mayor so much. Well, no, don't. I don't hate people, but if I was, yeah, what a man he is. So,
he said some controversial things on Remembrance Weekend, didn't he?
Don't even get me started on that man. He is also there. It's just a prime example, like you're seeing in Parliament, of half of the Labour MPs who are standing up in Parliament at the moment. You think they're MPs for Gaza. It's like you've got a constituency in England which has its own problems. Can you talk about that? Yeah. Rather than stand up and lecture everyone about Gaza, and then call anyone who disagrees with you an Islamophobe. It's like, oh, come on. I think people are bored of it. They're not, human suffering is horrible, but the situation in Israel and Palestine is complex. And, it should be debated. It's not just these people. It's like I keep saying to them on social media, do you have a constituency in Britain that you're meant to look after? Or are you just looking after the constituents of Gaza? I don't understand.
You had another kind of controversial bit going back a couple of years ago as well with the film 1917. Do you want to just give your kind of explanation on that quickly?
Well, I thought it was a bit tokenistic to see and I was actually wrong in that instance. But when you're pummeled with tokenistic adverts and stuff like that, and dramas where everywhere you got black Anne Boleyns and all of this sort of stuff, and you're just constantly pummeled with diversity hires, I saw this Sikh soldier and I thought it was a bit tokenistic. But then I was wrong, because there were Sikh soldiers out there. So actually, it was good. I learned a lesson. So it's totally fine to get it wrong.
Okay. So you got that wrong, you'd say, but you got it wrong because of the overflow of tokenism in other instances, you would say.
Yeah, I think the unrelenting tokenism and diversity casting and all of that stuff gets to you after a while. But in that instance, I was wrong. So I'm happy to put my hand up when I'm wrong.
I did see, just quickly to go back to the COVID situation, I saw that your mother passed away during that time. And at the time of this video, I saw you said that you wasn't able to grieve. Have you grieved at all now?
Yeah. It's a long process, grief, isn't it? But I was more worried, obviously deeply upsetting for me and for everyone who was related to her. But what about her great mates? I saw one of them the other day, and she just said, I never ever got to say goodbye to your mum or grieve or have a meeting, and it was just disgusting and appalling for what was a complete hoax. Sorry, but was absolute hoax of the highest order, organised by God knows what the motivation behind that was. But we shut the entire world down.
Yeah.
And we've got more people dying in the last however many years it is, 3 or 4 excess deaths we're talking about, not COVID-related deaths, than have died in entire wars. So it's an unforgivable what happened during COVID, and I will never ever forget it. And I will never forget to shove my mum in the ground. You can't do this. All having to stand loads of distance apart. My poor dad, for what? For a cold.
Yeah. Did you know this was in your mind? We have to say, did you know this was a hoax from the get-go, or was this something that you looked into along the way, or did you just see this coming?
I was going out with a journalist at the time, and she called me before any of it was announced, and she said, there's a deadly virus coming to the UK, and it's going to kill 750,000 people. And I went, bollocks. And she went, why do you say that? And I said, because every single airport would be closed if that was happening. Everything would be shut immediately if that was going to happen. And also I noticed that there weren't that many people falling over and dying in the street.
I saw those videos in China.
Yeah, that was another indicator that there weren't people falling around dying in the street. But you know what the left is like. The minute there's a crisis comes along, they get as much power out of it as they can, and they loved it. And now, Sadiq Khan the government shut down our country, but Sadiq Khan shut down our city, and now he's moaning that he's got no money, so he's shot. Did you see
I saw a video on Instagram the other day. I think it's it's one of those Northwest Pacific states, Oregon, Portland, Seattle, up them way somewhere. And I think, it might be San Francisco. They're voting, to stop the bombing in Palestine. But it was in a church, and every single one of them had a mask on. And it's just, I don't know, it's bizarre to me how some people are still so tolerant to it like that. Like the whole church, they had masks on.
But they're holy vestments, the mask. The mask is the holy vestment of the leftist. It's really useful.
Yeah, they use, it's like, they come hand in hand, would you say? Is that what you would say?
they've got their little rituals and their vestments, and that's one of their vestments. And it was useful during COVID because it's kind of useful watching people in masks because you just go, ha 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 ha. I haven't had a single injection, and I'm fine. So, but that now you see them at the if you go to a demo and you see these guys in masks at Palestinian demos, on face masks, and that's to avoid having their faces recognized.
Well, that's funny you should say that. During the first lockdown, I was still in the depths of my addiction. I was still really bad on heroin, and I was a shoplifter. And for the first time ever, I was allowed to wear a mask, and I couldn't get caught, So, although I didn't agree with lockdown, I didn't believe in it. I certainly wore those masks just to cover my face,
Handy.
It was handy, but for the wrong reasons, unfortunately. Things I'm still paying for now. So mothers, because I wanted to talk about it because I had friends as well who not only they weren't allowed to go to the funerals, but it was just like so quick, the whole process. And there was no looking into the death either. When I was rushed to hospital, they tried their best to say it was COVID when it wasn't, and I know that there is probably a lot of deaths out there that wasn't COVID, but was put down to that,
Oh yeah, there was loads. They were, dying with COVID and dying of COVID were two totally separate things, but they were all mullered in together. The average age of people who died was 83, and the average age of people who live is 82. So, the whole thing was a gigantic hoax, and it's bad.
Can I ask you, do you think that the disease itself was real, but it was planned? Or would you say that it's all a hoax? Because I was definitely ill at some time, and speaking to people like partners and friends and stuff who worked in the NHS, they have a different side to it to say, don't they, themselves, What would you say on that?
It was real, but it was, and whether, if it's gain of function in a lab, it's gain of function in a lab, and it came out and it's a new strain of flu that the body has to get used to dealing.
Yeah. Interesting.
Bad flu years. There's been flus that have come around many, many times. So it was this fearful reaction and the overreaction, which makes me think I've always been someone who listens to my gut. It's not often got me wrong. And I think that was about the greatest failed public health experiment in history. And if some of the people that are to be believed, the Brett Weinsteins and the Eric and people like that, we're looking at one of the biggest humanitarian disasters in a very, very long time.
Yeah, interesting.
And bearing in mind that YouTube wouldn't let you talk about it. I got a hard strike on YouTube for quoting JBCI figures. So if they don't want you to talk about it, usually the rule is talk about it a lot.
Of course. And, I think the funny thing about that is you're not, it would get flagged up if you mentioned the word COVID or 19. But at the same time, live on TV, there's a death count in real time. 1,000 deaths in Spain, 100 deaths here. And it's like the map of the death chart. It was just bizarre. Yeah. Okay. So, Laurence, I want to just talk a little bit about British culture, really. I've seen some videos of you climbing at the back end of statues and trying to save them and protect them, basically. What's your take on, I suppose, with British culture as well? Maybe we could touch a bit into the education system and stuff and what they're teaching the kids. I've heard you speak quite a lot about your son and stuff as well. Where would you like to start, really?
Well, who was it? Is it Aristotle or someone who said, give me the boy until he's 7 and I'll show you the man?
It's a brilliant
it was, so schools are complicit in this. They're not obeying their own guidance. You've got a load of, the average age of teachers is falling. Well, it fell precipitously, and now it's sort of evened off a bit. And it's, they're used as political indoctrination camps, a lot of them. And it doesn't take the majority of the school teaching staff to be like that. It only needs to be a few to bully the rest of them. And before you know it, you've got talks about climate change, pride, and LGBTQ issues, and Black History Month, and all of this stuff. And it's not what I want in a school. You've got to teach kids. You've got to get the best out of a kid's brain, not fill it with stuff that's pointless. I mean, to be fair, algebra is pretty pointless. I haven't used it since school. Yeah. But, I just think that schools should be places where kids are taught, that old adage, how to think, not what to think. But first of all, you do have to teach them how to think from a set of values that we all agree on, which is equality under the law, freedom of speech, equality under law, fairness, tolerance, all of those things that those are cornerstones of protection. How to think, not what to think, but you also have to base that in the British values of fairness, tolerance, equality under the law, free to practice any religion or none, free speech, all of these sorts of things, which are, now no longer the qualities that are taught. We're taught exactly the opposite: inequality under the law via diversity, equity, and inclusion. No fairness via diversity, equity, and inclusion. And no freedom of speech, because the minute you say anything about it, I mean, I think you're even called a racist if you are mildly skeptical about the fact that we're not all going to burn up in some climate change ball in about, the next 9 years or however long we've got left after AOC told us we're going to burn to a crisp.
That's bizarre. That is actually comical.
They love it. They just love a tragedy. Like, life is hard enough. Life is hard. So to make up extra tragedies that ruin people's lives seems to me about the most pernicious, kind of nasty way of living. And we're only here a short time. So
I do think that the educational system could be changed in certain ways. There was certainly things like algebra that, I could have done without, and maybe we can, how to set up a bank account, or, life skills, maybe, some of that. Added in with maths and English and science and history and geography, but the right history, of course. And maybe there is scope for a bit of diversity, a bit of equality, maybe. But I think it just seems like what the impression I'm getting. My mum's a primary school teacher, and she's bringing back all these books that are similar to what you say. And I think it's important that we teach that. But are you saying that that's all you're seeing they are teaching at the moment, and it's kind of damaging?
No, it's just because I'm involved in it as part of what I do for a living, so I get to see some of the worst parts of it. I'm not saying it's every school, and it's every part of every school. And as you say, as part of a balanced curriculum, you can say there's a bunch of people who believe that the world is going to fry in 9 years. You can turn into a girl or a boy, and that. Every white person is racist. I mean, if you want it, you can teach it, but you just say it's an ideology. You don't say it's our religion, which is what's happening. It's become a national religion, the diversity, equity, and inclusion religion, and it needs to stop, because it's nothing to do with this country at all, and it makes everyone miserable. When was the last time you laughed? Do you know what I mean? It's like, when was the last time
you're not allowed to?
I laughed I saw Ricky Gervais the other day and Dave Chappelle, and I laughed at that, and it was funny. But it's really hard to watch a film that's made in the last 10 years that is, funny, that really makes you giggle and think. And so I'm against it on an artistic level as well, because it's so unfunny. It's so serious and miserable that it's the enemy of art. And art is about free expression.
10, 15 years ago, we'd look at comedy, other comedy that would be from the 70s, the 60s, which at the time was accepted. And we might be like, this is a bit mad. But we would just say that's what it was like back then. But what we're seeing now is they will change the name to titles and books. They will erase certain lines, delete scenes, you know, and now it's not allowed in anything, you know. If they can't do that, if they can't delete scenes or change titles, they will ban the film.
Yeah, and that's why you need to have a hard copy and a DVD player, I would guess.
Yeah.
Because you know, everything that we rely on comes across the internet. Everything, you know, and that in itself is a revolution of a huge magnitude. You know, just the idea of having a computer in your hand, which is more powerful than whatever landed on the moon. You know, it's kind of bonkers. And I've got a really unhealthy relationship with my phone. Like, I want to break up with it all the time, because, and so do my kids. And you know, you can stop it to a degree, but everything is infotainment, isn't it? Doom scrolling, infotainment, and I think it makes people a bit miserable and sad. So I actually really need to have a conversation with myself about my own phone before I start lecturing my children about theirs.
Yeah, you know, but you can also look at it from the perspective of, you don't want this. I know this. This is, you know, it's that, like, I've been through this. It's funny because before I got into recovery, I never had a mobile because I'd either sell it or lose it. So I never had one. And my family, my friends, they'd all have their phone. They'd be sat there on their phones, and I'd be like, listen, like, get off the phone. Like, you're not living in the real world. But obviously when I got into recovery, it quickly snapped me up. And it's funny, as we talk right now, that my team who are here in the background, every single one of them are on their phones. You know, that, yeah. Oh, they've just snapped out of it. You know, it's one of those things that is just embedded in our society. And they say we are cyborgs now, aren't we? Because we have this device attached to us. We are the start of the transhumanism.
Soon it'll be in us, won't it, with Neuralink? So,
would you take it?
Well, I can't see how people are going to avoid taking it, because you know, if I don't know enough about it. I haven't really looked into Neuralink, but knowing Elon Musk, it'll be pretty crazy tech. And if it's going to, I don't know what the uses are, but say it staves off something like Alzheimer's or something like that, that'd be a pretty wonderful thing. I'd be dosing people to the max with that. But I certainly wouldn't be in the first wave, put it that way.
Yeah.
But if my kids suddenly started like being 400 times more intelligent than me, than they are already,
you can't beat them, join them, sort of thing. Yeah.
I'd have to catch up, get triple boosted with some Neuralink.
They say that is the mark of the beast. Like, some people say COVID jabs were, but they think the Neuralink will be that chip.
It's in Revelation, isn't it? It says, I can't remember what it is, Revelation, I can't remember which part, but it's just before the mark of the beast. It says that people will...
Basically, he will come across like he's a savior and he's doing great things, and people will cry out for it, they're saying, basically. And he is selling a good pitch with it, isn't he?
Yeah. It's now I want to know. Revelation, is it 21:4?
Let's have a look. Get your phone out.
It's I'll find it somewhere.
Mark of the beast. Scripture.
Yeah.
Revelation 13.
13, that's the one. And it says just before, doesn't it? Yeah, it also forced people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so they could not buy or sell unless they had that mark. Yeah, I mean...
And we are moving into the age of cashless societies.
We are. The mark is coming to all of us.
And do you know the worrying thing? it's appealing. You're sat there saying, I might get it if it eradicates this, or if it beats this, or if I can't keep up with my son, then I'll have to have, it is quite appealing. And that's the worrying thing.
I know. I mean, I won't be in the first wave, put it that way. I'll wait a long time before
But I'm sure that's what they will do, though, won't they? Like, if they really want to, like, get us, they will. The first wave's okay. We'll amp it up on the second. Similar like COVID, a bit of foreplay. Let's just see how it works. And then,
but like COVID backwards, they'll give us Delta first.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
One next time round.
I saw another clip, and you might have to kind of correct me on the wording and stuff, but it was about your son and consent and stuff like this. And again, with the schools and stuff. What was that conversation you had?
Well, like most parents, go give us our good night. And I said to my son, give us our good night. And he went, no, you got to ask my consent. And I went, what do you mean? And he went, they're teaching us about consent at school. And I went, all right, here's all you need to know about consent. Don't get in someone's face unless they want you in their face, and don't touch anyone's private bits. There you go, consent, finished. That's game over. And then I emailed the school and said, what are you doing? Because you obviously haven't taught him consent properly. And they said, yeah, we've had a nightmare. One of the other kids is refusing to eat broccoli. He says, I don't consent to it. And they can't do anything about it. So it's like, the job of the state nowadays is to destroy the family. It's always been its job to some degree. But the attack on the family is brutal. I mean, really, really brutal. They don't want families, because families are where, things like different ideas are born and discussed and raised. So they hate families. So yeah, that's another part of the education system which is not good. And
of course, you was married to Billie Piper for many, many years as well, and you got kids with her then, I assume. What's your relationship like with you and Billie Ann?
It could be better, put it that way.
Yeah, it could be better. Are you on two conflicting sides of what you think?
Yeah, I certainly think that we don't share a worldview, put it that way.
Yeah.
We love our kids, so that's all that matters.
But the bizarre thing about that is, how was you together for so long? Like, weren't these conversations happening during them early stages? What do you stand for? What do you believe in?
I didn't really care about any of this stuff until I noticed it.
Yes.
I was quite kind of switched off to the world. So I was just happy going along, earning my money acting, going fishing. And that's that. Yeah, we'd be happy. And then, we lived in the countryside, so it wasn't really the London kind of, wokerati weren't around, the liberal elite. So yeah, but when we did realise that we disagreed, it was quite interesting.
Yeah.
It was quite interesting. Yeah.
LGBTQ plus flags. Was it the plus flag, or was it the LGBTQ flag?
It was the progressive pride flag. What the one?
Progressive pride. Yeah.
It's the progressive pride flag. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this Pride Month this year. I'm gonna have a real good proper burning when it starts up again. I don't mind the rainbow flag. I've got no beef with the rainbow flag, even though I don't really care about flags that don't represent things other than countries. Yeah. I take it about as seriously as a corporate flag hanging outside. But I can see the point in a rainbow flag, because you're going, look, there was persecution of gays and lesbians in this country in the 70s and 80s and some of the 90s, and there's still a bit today, not much, but there is. And I can understand why you'd have a rainbow flag to say, look, you're safe in here.
Are you homophobic?
No, I've got no beef with gay people at all.
Transphobic?
Well, there's no such thing as trans, really. So
I see what you've done there.
It's hard to be phobic about something that doesn't exist.
Okay.
No, the bits that I object to are on the progressive pride flag, it's the black chevron, which stands for Black Lives Matter. What's that? What that's got to do with being gay or lesbian, I've no idea. And then there's a brown chevron, which is just for brown people. Doesn't matter where you're from, China, Mongolia, India, Manitoba, doesn't matter. And then there's the trans bit. And the trans bit is encouraging, you only have to speak to someone like Peter Tatchell, is encouraging the mutilation of children. But taking puberty blockers and things like that, and convincing them that they can change their sex, which they can't. So I think that's satanically evil, and that's what I don't like about it, and that's why it'll get burnt every single Pride Month there is, and people are losing their tolerance for it. So, however much the grief I get about it for doing it, people are really getting bored of it all by themselves.
And what is the conflicting part there for you of the rainbow flag being added with the trans and then the Black Lives Matter and the brown? Is it just like, is it just mixing up stuff for no reason? Is that what's bothering you?
It's several things that bother me. One is that it's homophobic, because transsexualism is homophobic, because it's saying, no, don't worry, mate, you're not gay. You're just a girl. You're just trapped in the wrong body. You're not gay. Trans that away for you. We'll get rid of that. So it's homophobic, so it shouldn't be on the flag, should it? Shouldn't be.
So you think being trans is homophobic?
Yeah, massively homophobic.
Okay. That is an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. I mean, someone explained to me why it's not homophobic. And then, do you not think it's homophobic?
I think people might just... If someone thinks that they are a type of, if they identify as a female, but they fancy males, then that's down to them, isn't it? Like, I don't see how it's homophobic.
They can get, no, I think it's homophobic on the flag, because it's saying you can trans away the gay, which is what they're doing. But also, you meet trans people, they tend to be pretty sound, and they don't like their
I do definitely see that there is a divide, or an us and them, with gays and trans, because you hear a lot of gay people say, I don't agree with these trans people coming into the toilets with me. Like, I hear that a lot. I definitely do.
My gay friend phoned me up. One of my gay friends phoned me up and said, honey, why are you desecrating our flag? It's so awful. We love the pride flag. It's just rainbows and happiness for us. And I was just like, because of the reasons that I've told you. I explained to him and went, oh, disgusting. I'm never going to fly one of those ever again. I hate it.
Do you think some of these are not even educated then, and they're just kind of...
Some of the gay guys don't know. I mean, he, to be fair, is quite he's a funny guy. So
yeah, he sounds like it.
We give that much of a shit about it. But yeah. I think it's like, I don't like political flags being flown in London. I don't like Pride Month. I don't, would anyone ever suggest White History Month? Would anyone ever go, you know what we really need? Straight People Month, where we all dance around naked. This sounds like a month I'm ready to invest in. But do you know what I mean? White History Month.
You funny guy.
It just wouldn't happen.
No, it just wouldn't happen. You are right, like.
So why does it work in one direction? Sadiq Khan flies that fucking flag in London on Regent Street.
I do feel that the way I look at it is, we're not learning from history in the sense of progression. It's more of a tit for tat. It's more of, the tables have turned. You have to suffer now. When you speak to people and say, like, why do you think this is happening? Because you was in our country first. You stole our... And it's like, okay, I agree, but that wasn't me. That was my ancestors, let's say. And although these things happened, surely we can learn from these things and become better people, rather than it being this tit for tat all the time. That's how I look at it anyway.
It was 200,000 people that took over the British Empire. So you're trying to tell me that they didn't work with the people that they were part of the empire?
Yeah.
We had 1 million people coming to this country last year. That's an invasion. That's not an empire. I mean, but if that we're witnessing, which we are witnessing, which is the complete Islamification of Europe, then great. Well done, the Ottoman Empire, the new Ottoman Empire, because if you don't shut your borders, that's what you're going to have. You're going to have predominantly Muslim country in 3 generations.
And do you know the funny thing about this is, as this Islamification of Europe, as you just spoke about there, has been happening. One country that everyone always talks about, we should be like them, I'm going to move there, was Poland. But this is a country now that is literally on the verge of being invaded by Russia. So it's as if like that one safe haven isn't really safe anyway. And that makes me think of this global plan of everything working together anyway.
Yeah, well, there's certainly a desire for one world government. Of course there is. That's called a conspiracy theory as well. Even though they announce it, they talk about it, and they put bills through Parliament saying it. You criticise WHO treaties or the UN or any organisation, supranational organisation and supranational organisation, and you're called a conspiracy theorist. But it's like, no, you've said you want one world government where all of the pandemic planning is done by one organisation. You want to give away British sovereignty. You don't believe in borders. You know, they're now racist. I think we're about a week away from anyone who even mentions the word border will now be called racist, because borders are racist. If you think about it, they're really racist. Such a shame, isn't it? Everything's racist. Cheerful.
Mountains, rivers, creeks, oceans, borders are racist.
The countryside is already racist. Have you not read your newspaper recently? Countryside is racist. It said so.
Who?
There was an article in the Country File did a piece.
Country File did.
Yeah, that bastion of fine journalism. That did a piece on the fact the countryside is racist and it doesn't welcome people of different colours. I'm like, okay, so down those racist trees and that racist hill over there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, speechless. I am absolutely speechless on that one. The Ava Evans, I know I'm kind of skipping here over things here, but obviously you was working for GB News not too long ago, and there was like the gang of you, Dan Wootton, Calvin, and it was really interesting to watch. We've interviewed Calvin. I actually almost got sacked from my job for interviewing Calvin, by the way, so I'll probably have this again, believe it or not. He's black. Yeah, so that was okay, but I was definitely getting sacked with you because you're white. Yeah, can you explain what happened, Laurence, in your own words?
She was saying that male suicide is part of the culture wars, which I think is about the rudest thing you could ever say when it's the biggest killer of men under 50. I have had experience of male suicide, and I was so livid that what I should have done was just berated her. But instead I just said, who'd want to shag that? A woman like that? Yeah. And
I'm not laughing at that. I just
no.
It's the way you said it.
It was my point, which wasn't very well made, was any man that ends up with a woman like that is in for a miserable future, who belittles male mental health and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I should have said, but instead I did what I usually do, which is just go sideways and say who'd want to shag that. But they got their scalp. Everyone was really, really upset about it. And so yeah, it was hilarious how people on our side of the argument fold in a second, whereas on the other side of the argument you could say anything you like, up to and including we need to normalize massacres, and people just get slapped on the wrist and they're like, oh, naughty. But if you say you don't want to shag someone, I thought the Me Too movement would be thrilled about that.
With that, yeah, you don't want to shag her.
I think it was confected. It was confected outrage, and as is always the case with these Twitter things, it was confected outrage brought up by this woman who says shag quite a lot in her own Twitter feed.
So what was it? Was it just she was offended that you might have called her ugly or something? Because, like you said, the Me Too movement would have loved that, surely.
She's not ugly either. She's quite good looking. Shame she's got a rotten mind, full of woke crap. But she's a very attractive woman. So no, everyone just got very upset, and someone had to get fired, and that's what happens. But I think I just think it was no one was really that upset. But our side is such cowards. We're all like, oh, well, sorry, so sorry. Just turn around and go, it's his opinion. He could have expressed it better, but there you go. We are the home of free speech, or not, depending on what your views on GB News are.
Well, I looked at GB News as kind of like that final front, maybe, of like free speech, maybe. Did you must have thought that as well at one stage?
Well, not really. I was always told what I couldn't say. I think they've dropped the moniker the home of free speech, have they? Because and they've left themselves open to a whole load of attacks from people, because they've shown that they will surrender under the smallest of attacks. So either it's a great last bastion, or it's the place where the liberal conservatives have gathered all dissident voices and tried to control them and control the narrative that comes out. Do
you know what's funny though, as well though, is like, like you look at like the top standard, you've got your GMTV, you've got This Morning, you've got all these programs who probably wouldn't let you on there, touch you with a barge pole. But as soon as you do get sacked from GB News, they want you on. They want to hear what you've got to say. It's like they'll accept you to slag you, but they won't accept you to have your say.
Yeah, that's why I've developed a thickish skin when it comes to this sort of stuff. Anyway, as I said, I don't consume the media, so I don't really care what the media. I can't remember the last time the media told me anything that was true. So I can't say I miss it. I miss the paycheck, but I don't miss the job. Yeah.
Surveillance state. We're moving into this frightening time. It's all part of the agenda, we might say. But what I want to talk about first is in Wales now, we have 20 mile per hour restrictions in nearly everywhere.
They don't want us leaving our houses. They want us to stay at home. 20 mile an hour that's just stupid. It's ripping the piss, actually, because you've got to look at you. It's really hard to drive at 20 miles an hour. You've got it in London as well, and you've got to stare at that, and it's just to get you. They can't take your car away from you, so they just make it impossible to use. And they'll charge you to get in it, and they'll charge you to get out of it, and they'll charge you when it gets too old, and they'll charge you for this, and they'll charge you for that. And what I find so amazing is that anyone puts up with it. Obviously there are people that don't. I'm not allowed to mention them because of my bail conditions, but there are people that don't like it. And
I was with a guy last week called Paul Burgess. Do you know him? Climate change guy. He's on GB News once a week. He lives in Wales. I actually done another interview with Tommy Robinson, and he was interviewing him for his podcast Silenced. But he was saying how all of this is part of the agenda, maybe Agenda 2030. I don't know what he was trying to say when he said agenda, but it's all to, the 15-minute cities and everything like that is all part of the plan.
Yeah, well, they've said that is the C40 cities, all of it. They've said it. And then again, you're a conspiracy theorist for pointing it out. Now, if people want to stay at home and live like battery hens, then they're more than entitled to. But I don't want to, and I'm going to fight it until my dying day.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to get in my car and go where I want to go, when I want to go there. That's one of the principles of freedom. And it's not up to, some bureaucrat somewhere to tell me what I can and can't do in my day.
There's a couple of tweets I just want to go through before we do wrap up, because I know you're short of time, Laurence. And they're pretty recent as well. The first one is obviously the David Cameron tweet about the Houthi rebels being bombed by the UK and the US. What was it exactly you said, and what did you mean?
Well, if you read the David Cameron tweet, this is why they're so fucking stupid, these people. if you read, where is David Cameron's tweet? When was that? It was a couple of days ago. If you read David Cameron's tweet, he says, oh yeah, they did get really annoyed with that, didn't they? I love annoying these people. Right, where is he? Where are you, Cameron? Come on. Oh, right, now do the English channel. Yeah. So he said, the UK and US have carried out targeted airstrikes on Houthi military targets and rebels. The safety of UK vessels and the freedom of navigation across the Red Sea is paramount, and that's why we're taking action. So I was like, well, can you apply the same thing to the safety of UK? I wasn't saying bomb the migrants.
So you wasn't saying bomb the migrants coming over on boats. You was actually saying this. Let's make our channel safe.
Yeah, look after the integrity of our own borders before we start policing another stretch of water. You know, it's if they suddenly in 5 minutes can pull together an entire military exercise and go and shut down a bunch of rebels who are firing missiles at the sea, I'm sure they could get out a few boats and go and nudge some rubber dinghies back to France. That's my view. But they don't want to. So you see the media outrage straight away. Because I was having lunch and someone phoned me up and went, "Uh-oh." I was like, "Oh, right, okay, fine." But I don't care. I don't want them to be. I don't want to kill asylum seekers, or people or economic migrants who are coming over on boats. I want the Royal Navy in the Channel meeting those boats and towing them back to France. That's what I want to happen.
Why do you think they are not allowing this? And what is your outlook on this?
It's the complete destruction of the West. Certainly of Europe. And you cannot have that much migration into a country and that country stay stable. You just can't do it. It's not going to work. And multiculturalism is an absolute unfettered disaster. And it's probably almost too late now. Because what are the your average Brit is breeding at 1.3, and we're not replacing ourselves. So we'll be 3 generations from now, we'll be done.
But do you the opposition who are all for this, not just the government, but your woke average person, you would say, who are like, no, let this happen. Do you think that they're going to regret this at one stage as well?
Well, yeah. I mean,
or do you think they want to see disaster?
I think that there's a nihilism to what they're doing, yeah. But at the end, it's always the weird functionaries, the first wave of functionaries, now apparatchiks, who they get shot once the revolution's complete. But, there are vast swathes of this country that are, they're just, you couldn't reasonably call them Britain. And that's really sad. And that's not to say you can't have a multiracial society. I think you can really easily, but you still should unite under the laws of that country that you're in. We don't have Sharia law in this country. We have English law, English common law, which has been around for a very, very, very long time. And to see that replaced, like what happened in Batley with the grammar school teacher, is appalling. We don't have blasphemy laws in this country. So, I think we should protect our culture and heritage because it's ours and it's the only thing we've got. There's nowhere else we can go, right? This is our home. And in my view, it's being invaded. That's what I think.
Quickly, your take on Gary Lineker. It seems like you don't like Gary Lineker.
Gary. I used to know Gary.
So you know him, yeah?
I used to know him, yeah.
Used to.
He's a... he's just, I don't pay the license fee, so I don't pay for his ridiculous salary. But, the BBC Charter says you need to be impartial. Therefore, you need to be impartial if you're taking that amount of money from the taxpayer. And he doesn't care, virtue signals about anything and everything, but is, world's biggest hypocrite. I hate people like that. I find them really difficult to deal with. I mean, I don't think about him often enough. Sadiq Khan's the one who rots my brain. But Gary, I'll take a pop at Gary once in a while. I did actually ask ChatGPT to create a picture of Gary as an esteemed Islamic scholar this morning, just waiting for the next moment he says something really anti-Semitic. So I'm just
okay. For some weird reason, I want this to happen just to see this.
It's quite good. It's actually quite. You've got to.
Do you have it?
Yeah, you've got to convince the AI to do it without telling it. There he is.
Can you put that in the middle? Oh my gosh! Oh, you need to see this. Come and have a look.
That's Gary.
So he's put Gary Lineker as a Muslim scholar on ChatGPT this morning, and he's waiting to retweet this.
I'm just waiting for Gary. Just waiting for Saint Gary to say the right thing.
Mate, honestly, the one thing I respect about you is that you don't care, and you do, stand by your guns on what you say. But that is kind of the finishing question, maybe, really, is like, do you regret it, really? Like, everything, all the decisions you've made, the things you spoke on, the career you once had. Do you have any regrets?
Well, yeah, some things you get wrong. But, I mean, I don't want to live in a world where you can't talk. And I don't want to live in a world where perfectly moderate opinion is going to be stamped out. I've got kids. I've got to raise them. There's a great freedom that comes with speaking your mind, because a lot of people don't. So it's quite weird living in the world, and people are grateful for it because someone's got to do it. Someone's got to stick their neck out and say the thing that a lot of people are thinking but are too scared to say. And I'm well positioned to do that because I've been cancelled so many times now that I'm in a good spot to say it. And I do say it repeatedly, and I like the fact that it upsets them, because they should be upset by it's not illegal to offend somebody in this country, and if you find what I say offensive, fine. I don't mind, but I don't think many of my views are that radical, if I'm honest. I think the media like to say that I'm some sort of crazed fanatic loon, but I'm not really. I just have normal views that most people have. I just say them out loud.
Do you believe you're on the good side of the fight?
Yeah, I am, because I'm not lying. So lying is, I could be a lot richer, sat on a film set in Belize, quaffing a caipirinha right now, probably. But I'd have to lie to have it. So what's worth more?
Yeah,
truth or lies? I think the truth is more. There's no money, no price on the truth, is there?
No. Laurence, I want to thank you so much for giving us your time. We should have done this a long time ago, and maybe one time in the near future, when I'm next in London, we could maybe do it in person. I know you're a busy man and you've got a lot of stressful stuff going on. One thing we do with all our guests, which I would like to do maybe, we like them to finish off with a positive message, to our viewers. I think maybe the message could be along the lines of those people who are probably too scared to speak up about something, but are silent. If you could take it away.
I think the positives are people are getting tired. It's affecting, this stuff is affecting everybody's lives now. So people are getting, my dog is dreaming.
I can hear him gulping.
Rosie? What is it? What are you dreaming about? So, yeah, I think that there are more people coming together and more people standing up, and that your silent majority views are going to come back into fashion, because we've had a lot of phases in society where weird ideologies have permeated society for a period of time, but they never last, and we learn from them. So once this woke period is over, which is, I think it's coming to a head now, you'll be able to speak your mind again and have a laugh, and comedy will be funny. And maybe I'll get my job back. Fat chance.
Hey, Laurence, thank you so much. I hope you have a great start to your year. Hopefully that agenda will be a load of shite and it won't really happen. And we'll see you back on the big screen, maybe.
Oh, that'd be nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
thank you very much.
Cheers, bro.
Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.
The Central Club.